Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Loan Officer Marketing Podcast. We are blessed today to have got Kyle with us, Kyle Guldenpfennig.
Got it.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you having me.
It's so you and I are friends, just like full disclosure to the audience. Obviously, we've met through the mortgage business and everything, but we're friends and we've been working together for a significant amount of time. So I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, I've been super excited for this. I had you on my show a while back, Chris, and it was an awesome pleasure to have you on. So being in the hot seat today, it's a little less comfortable. I don't get to ask you all the hard questions. Now I'm worried about all these hard questions you got coming my way.
Don't worry, they're all softballs, and if you want to fire anything at me, you feel absolutely free. So, um, you've been doing some great production as of late. I think the last numbers that I saw, you were up to like 8 loans in the pipeline, for the month. Is that right?
Yep. So I was averaging about 3 loans a month through June, and then June I just finally saw the activity that I've been working so hard on to come to fruition. And starting in July, I hit 8, and I've just continued to. I think I've averaged 7 since then. Through the end of October is what I'll have. November, I've got 5 in there for now, and I've got a couple more that just came in over the weekend that I'm excited to plug in there. So it's exciting. It's growing, and it's doing exactly what Carl said, right? The activities, everything that he says, hey, you get to 8, you're going to kind of peter out. You need to get somebody else in there so that you can go from 8 to 16. And having those conversations with the people around me and how 8 to 16 just feels like it's inevitable, and it
Yep.
feels like it's so much easier than going from 2 or 3 to 8. I'm jazzed up. I'm actually talking about growing my team, Chris.
Yes.
I am considering bringing someone on, and we're hoping here we start hiring here in the next couple of weeks. And yeah, I'm thinking Carl says, once you go from get 8 per person, I want to go to 16. So I just need to add another person, and we double that business hopefully within 6 months. So that's the goal.
That's awesome. And so, what position are you hiring? Are you doing like a loan processor?
Yeah, I'm actually looking at the loan pre-approval specialist, and
Perfect.
I'm going to continue to keep my processor that we share across the office for now. And maybe down the road, if we can get to 16 within those 6 to 9 months, is kind of my goal. I think Carl's plan is it should take 3 to 6 months. It's my first time hiring somebody, so I'm going to give myself a little leeway. But
Yep.
as soon as we can see some consistency and those 16 loans a month are sticking around, then I'm hoping to add a full-time processor for us as well, and go another 8 or so loans after that. So
That
it's
is
exciting
amazing.
to even consider. This is not something that I thought getting to 8 loans a month was going to be it. Like if I got to 8 loans a month, I thought I'm doing well. I don't
Mm,
need anything more. And now I
yeah.
got to 8, and it's like, wow, that was really hard to get here, right? And going from 8 to 16 doesn't seem that far away. I need to get a few more referral partners, but I just heard a stat yesterday on the RE source. Shout out to those guys. They said that only 2.5% of homes in the U.S. have changed hands over the last year. So
Wow.
that's a crazy stat to think about, right? Two and a
Hmm.
half percent of the homes out there are actually moving around, meaning there are so many homes that are sitting there just waiting to be sold, waiting to be purchased. Home buyers are still on the fence waiting for rates to come down. So many people are waiting. And not to be too arrogant, but the fact that I was able to grow my business when we're only seeing 2.5% of those homes being moved around, I can't wait for the other 97.5% to start moving around, right? That's insane.
It is absolutely insane, but there's always business to be done. The cycles of the real estate game are not going to change. It's going to go up, it's going to go down. There's always business to be had for people that are following a plan and that are making the right activities happen in their business, because there's so few that are following a strategic plan and actually doing the actions, which is what you have done, which kudos to you and congratulations. So as we talk about the future, I would like to pause for a moment and go back and recognize something in the fact that what you've done is a massive goal for a lot of people that we talk to in the mortgage industry, because there's a lot of people that want to go from 3 to 4. I fluctuate. Like some months it's 2, some months it's 4, some months it's 5, some months it's 2, right? And there's that's normal in the mortgage industry. And the majority of the people that you talk to, it's like, what's your goal? What do you want to do? It's like, I want to double. I want to get to consistent 8, consistent 9, right? So, what were the activities that you implemented following the daily success plan to get yourself from that 3 to 4 loans a month to the 8 to 9 loans a month?
Well, I'll say I started MMA in May of 23,
Yeah.
and I had the action plan, but until I met you in person and I got to meet Carl in person and I got to see everybody and feel the energy in that room of a loan officer retreat, the mastermind, I didn't necessarily feel like I had that community, right? And as
Yeah.
soon as I got that community of other people in the room, making the phone calls, doing the same thing I'm doing, having people I can contact, I've got guys that I'm texting, gals as well that I'm texting throughout the week, saying, "Hey, here's some things that I've been working on. What are you guys doing?" We're sharing ideas, sharing activities, but ultimately, it's just about making the calls. I told my boss the other day, I said, I don't know if I'm just stupid or what it is, but Carl said you need to be Bob, right? You just need to be like Bob, his employee, who Bob walked up and said, "Carl, I want to work for you." And Carl said, "Great. Bob, you can go do whatever. Make 10 calls." Bob made 10 calls, returned back, and okay, what next, Carl? And he's like, "I don't know, Bob. Go make 100 calls." I don't know. So he goes and makes 100 calls, comes right back. "What next, Carl?" And he's like, "What in the world?" And this guy just did everything he was told to do. But then Bob now runs his own mortgage company because Bob did everything he was told to do. He learned how the system works and he grew his business. And so I did exactly that. And I'm doing exactly what I'm being told to do. I'm a really good rule follower. I just don't like working for somebody else. I like working for me. So that's a hard uh, conundrum, but just making the phone calls, right? So making the phone calls, following up with the Focus 40, getting the post copies, all that kind of stuff. Um, I've used a lot of different dialers over the last couple of years, and dialers have been huge. I know your last episode, I listened to that the other day, and it was talking about the dialers, and using those really helped me overcome that call reluctance.
Yep.
And now, what's great and amazing is that success has actually helped me get over call reluctance. So
Mm-hmm.
having success with all of these different agents and working with different people and getting new partners, I look back at last year to this year, and I only have 2 or 3 of the same partners that I did last year that I do
Yep.
now. And Carl talks about usually an agent relationship only lasts about 2.5 years on average, some less, some more. And so I got to keep growing that, right? Because these
That's right.
agents I might not have next year. I might not be working with them. They might not like me, whatever the case is. 25% of people love you, 25% of people don't like you, and 50% of people are kind of swung, right? So
Yep.
they're swinging my way right now. We just don't know. So I got to keep making those phone calls. And that's the thing. I want to get somebody hired in here because right now I've been so buried in my files. When you get to 8 loans a month, it just becomes a lot more processing and keeping up with everything and making sure that the leads that are coming through are closing on time, and the calls have just kind of slacked off. So I'm excited. I get a lot of anxiety when I come into work and I go through the day and I make 5 calls and I think I just wasted my entire day. Like, what
Mm.
was I doing? I know I got through quote unquote work, but what was I doing? I didn't make any calls.
So, in a perfect world, like when you're really on it and you are doing the outbound that brings in the relationships and the appointments and the activities, really, how many calls do you make in a day that you're like, yes, I'm doing it, I'm working the plan, this is what I need to be doing?
I'd say probably about 40. If I
Wow,
can
that's
get
it.
200 calls a week, that's a pretty
Yep.
good week for me. I make calls on Fridays. I know that Fridays are kind of more for working on the business than working in the business. I, as we'll talk about here probably in a little bit, I love the AI CRM, but I see it as a tool where Fridays are also the day that I get to clean up some stuff, right? And so a
Hmm.
lot of it is I've got some tasks out there that I've created for myself within the CRM that maybe I didn't get around to on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yep.
Friday, I go through, clean all that stuff up, get it ready to go for next week. And oh, by the way, I made a few of those phone calls and they actually turned into applications. And, it was just business sitting there waiting to be done. Right.
Yep.
And so I try to make calls Monday through Friday because I just enjoy calls, which is a year ago. I don't think I would have said that. I was scared to pick up that phone. It weighed 1,000 pounds. So
Oh yeah, absolutely. But how long did it take from the time that you started making the calls until you really started to see the results that the tailwind? Yeah, like you got to grind through until the results start coming, and then the results push you forward, right? How long was it from the time that you started making the calls to the time that you started getting the results?
So that's actually a great question, and it is a little discouraging to think about because I've spoken with the owner of our company, and I've spoken with Jen over at MMA,
Hmm.
and they both told me this should have taken you 3 to 6 months based on the activity you were doing. I'm in here every single day at the office. I'm a guy that I just have to be in the office. I have to have community around me. I can't work from home just because I can't focus. I start doing dishes and all that kind of stuff, right? So when I'm in the office, I'm here. I might as well be productive. And
Yep.
I close my door. I put a sign on the door saying I'm making my phone calls. I was on call start, and I've got people staring at me making their calls. I got to make my calls.
Yep.
And so it actually ended up taking me about 12 months
Yep.
before I actually saw the activity come to fruition. But like I say, most people say it should take 3 to 6 months. You hear success stories of someone you mentioned a while ago who had, he's 5 months into the business and he's got 5 loans closing. That's amazing. My activity hasn't taken off like that. At the same time, I don't want to blame the market, but I'm going to blame the market and say the market was ugly for a little while, right?
Yeah, it
It's
was.
getting better. A lot of the agents that I was targeting, they're now in a position where they're getting better. They're getting more leads. They're sending those people to me. So that's
Yep.
helping.
Absolutely. And I feel like the work that you're doing now, and we're farming, we're not hunting right now, right? Refi season was hunting. Yeah, you could go to the grocery store and walk out with an app. You know what I mean? Like that is not the season that we are in right now. But we are planting seeds, we're nurturing, and there's still a lot of business to be done while farming. But we're building the farm for the future, and it's phenomenal to see your tenacity in keeping at it because you very much deserve the success that you have and the success that's coming to you as well as a result of those activities. So congratulations.
Thank you, man. Yeah, and Stephen Covey actually says in his book, Principle Centered Leadership, he talks
Mm,
about the farming example. And he talks
nice.
about how you have to cultivate those seeds early, even if it's just with your kids
Mm,
or it's with, your spouse, any relationship you have. You're not going to get that relationship overnight where they suddenly just says, "Oh, I don't like the rest of my lenders. I'm going to send you all my business." Right?
yeah.
It's going to take time. And I have one agent who I even sent her a couple of people to help with, and I was talking to somebody in my office, and I was like, I've given her what I would consider golden eggs,
Right.
what I give as, referrals that I'm giving out. And she hadn't sent me anybody yet. And so she kept saying, "Oh, it's coming, it's coming." Well, then her guy got out of the business because
Yeah.
60% of mortgage lenders got out of the business. And she looked at me and said, "Kyle, you're my guy. You've been calling me every single Monday. To the point now where you're getting all my business." And
Wow.
she is a high producer. She's what MMA would consider a whale, and she is sending me people left and right. I just got off the phone with one of her customers a little bit ago this morning, so it's great. It's phenomenal.
And how does it feel to start a relationship from a perspective of earning it? Like you earned that business. And so the relationship is different.
Right.
When she sends the business to you, she sees it as completely different, and you get to feel it and see it completely different as well. What does that feel like?
It's heartwarming, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not that instant gratification that we're so used to. I can hop on TikTok and I can get all the instant gratification I want just by scrolling through videos, but I was pounding the pavement. I was making phone calls to her nonstop, and I went to voicemail a lot.
Yeah.
But I just knew that it's really with any agent, whether it's her or anybody else, just being around when that lender that they're working with makes a mistake or they just decide they don't want to use them anymore, or whatever happens, just being there. So I still have a lot of phone calls like that they aren't here yet, but maybe the relationship turns and a door opens.
A
So,
seed planted.
yep.
Absolutely. Okay. So you're making the calls and you're making a lot of calls. You increase that volume using a power dialer. Now, we have a power dialer now inside the loan officer AI CRM. Can you talk about, first off, for people that don't know, like what is a power dialer and how did it help you?
Yep. So the power dialer is just a simple way to get as many calls through in as short a time as possible. As soon as I hung up the call, I click voicemail, it drops in the voicemail, and it's automatically calling the next person. If I was able to speak with that customer, I can take notes, explain what's going on. The CRM allows me to get, like, I think it's 30 seconds or so to type notes. So if I'm typing really slow, my fingers aren't working that day, I can always pause it so that way I can get those notes put in. But it allows me to really churn through those calls. And I've actually set it up. Carl provided, again, I'm just being Bob here. Carl provided the 12 weeks of voicemails to leave when you go through and do Thor's Hammer. So week one, I always did it manually. I always left that voicemail because I felt like I need to say who I am. I need to mention their name. I need them to understand it's truly me. Right?
Yep.
But then weeks 2 through 12, I actually had those on automated voicemails because voicemails most of the time aren't getting listened to anyways.
Yep.
Most of those agents didn't feel neglected because I chose to leave an automated message. They knew I was thinking of them. That's the reason I had them on my list.
Yep.
But they're, like I say, they're not usually listening to those voicemails. So I had created all of those voicemails automated. He's got one in there that's a script about, I've got 5 pizzas standing outside your office waiting to, have you let me in. Ha ha, just kidding. Now that I've got your attention, would you rather do lunch instead of coffee? I read that thing a few times into my voicemail recorder, and eventually it sounded natural. And so then I was able to just save that, and it made me really uncomfortable to read that. But I read it once and I saved it in the system. And then from then on, every time that I got to week 5 or 6 or whatever that was, I click leave voicemail. It leaves that specific voicemail for that agent. I don't feel uncomfortable. That voicemail is no longer an uncomfortable feeling. It's not 12 weeks of, hey, Chris, it's Kyle calling to check in, see if we can chat sometime. Hey, Chris, it's Kyle doing the same thing again. Hey, Chris, you're not answering me. Instead of getting frustrated, it's a pleasant voicemail that's being left. So the dialer allows me to leave all those voicemails. Actually, Ben on your team has helped me to create a power dialer for Thor's Hammer within my system. So when I am making week 1 calls, they're all tagged with Thor's Hammer week 1. I throw them into the dialer. And then after I've made that call, it'll put them in there to wait for 6 days. And then it'll remove week 1 tag, add week 2 tag, stick them into the dialer. I make those calls. I can make my voicemails based on what tag is available or already on that customer. And I can do the exact same thing I was doing with Phone Burner previously. Now moving it over to the LO CRM. And everything is all housed in one place. I don't have to worry about having multiple different CRMs with calls in one place and emails in another and text messages. It's all right there. One thing I want to mention to somebody listening that says, well, Kyle, that CRM phone number is different than my personal cell phone number. The agent is used to my personal cell phone number. They're not going to know this number. Well, number one, you send out a text and say, hey, it's Kyle. I want to introduce myself. Okay. This is my office line. Right. And then from there, they don't care. Right. They're getting communication from you. They're hearing from you. I've got my activity built up with the system so that when I make phone calls from there, it's no longer showing up as spam. It's showing up as my company name. And so when people are getting those phone calls, they see my company listed. They may not see my name initially, but they're like, well, I know Kyle works there, so I'm going to answer this just in case. You always hear them, hello? Okay, yeah, that's great. Okay, yeah, that's what I figured, but I wasn't sure. So getting them to save that number. And then, we talk about reach. We use reach sometimes to push out text messages to, I like to send a Thursday text every couple of weeks. And I send it out to all the agents that I've either had coffee with or I've met with or on my Focus 40, whatever. And I send out a general funny text. I use ChatGPT to create a funny little meme, throw in a little message about, hey, is there anybody that is being Bob this week and needs to do the same old, and or maybe isn't being Bob and needs to come talk to me.
Yep.
Whatever. I have ChatGPT write it. I'm not good with words. So sticking everything into that CRM and just letting everything kind of run on its own, having emails go out if I don't connect with people, just all of it's done through the CRM, and it's been awesome. There are so many things I have yet to implement, and that's one of the things that I'm really excited about when it comes to hiring somebody is I'm going to have more time to devote to that.
Yep.
Right now, my time is being devoted towards keeping things rolling and processing and stuff. But I spend way too much time dreaming about all the campaigns I can create inside the CRM.
That is amazing. And the thing that I love, though, is you're focused on the success activity of making the calls and then having the automation behind you. So if they don't pick up the phone, ringless voicemail automatically gets dropped. Follow-up emails automatically go out. 6 days later, they're automatically back in the power dialer. So you just show up, hit the button, make the calls, because the calls are what generates the results. The conversations are what go from 4 loans a month to 8 loans a month. So as much of that other stuff that you can get out of your way so that you can just get to the office, get on Call Stars with MMA, hit the button and make the calls. You've done such a phenomenal job with that. So that's amazing. Kyle, are you using the qualified agent data in the system to look up the production of the real estate agents?
I am definitely using Reader to do so,
Awesome.
and I'm doing it sometimes on the CRM, sometimes outside of that. But um, I'm not making the calls from there. At this point, I've gotten my business to the point where I'm not looking to grow right now until I find somebody to bring under me.
Wow.
So I'm continuing to do my Focus 40 every week. Mondays are my Focus 40 calls. I'm doing some post coffees, and that's about it. I'm not doing the Thor's Hammer right now. I do anticipate
Wow.
getting back to that, right? I want to get back into that. I want to make a few calls, but I want to be more selective. I've noticed the
Mhm.
biggest thing about having business now is talking to customers, talking to agents. If you don't want to work with me, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go make another phone call. I'm not going to worry about it. I used to, that's the reason that 2 to 8 is so hard, because when
Mhm.
you're working from 2 to 8, that extra phone call where they were maybe on the hook, I worried about it. I stewed on it. I
Yep.
fretted over it. Right. Now, okay, you don't want to talk to me. That's fine. I'll go talk to somebody else. Somebody
Hmm.
else might want to work with me instead. Just move on. There's more. The law of abundance was always something that I thought was really cool, and sure, it exists. Yeah. Yep. I believe it. But having the business and not worrying about having the business makes the law of abundance feel even greater for sure.
Absolutely, it does. And it's just so amazing to hear you at the point where you're at that 8 loans a month and you're going like, I'm not doing the Thor's hammer because I've just gotta like there is a point like when you shift gears in a car, you gotta let off the gas a little bit so you can get her into the right gear and then away you go. And it's amazing to watch you making that shift right now and doing it in a healthy way. So that's amazing, Kyle. Congratulations. Well, thank you for being so generous with your time. I know you're incredibly busy, so I don't want to go too far. But if there was one piece of advice that you could give a loan officer right now in today's marketplace, like what's your one message out to the mortgage industry right now?
I think it's two part, and I
Mm.
would say it is um, using the CRM, the AI CRM. I'm going to make a plug for your for your stuff because I find it amazing. I love how you lean back there so we can see your
There we
shirt. We got to see that. Yep,
go.
absolutely. Um, I have used that thing. We brought over campaigns from other CRMs that we were using, and I built them all from scratch to start using it immediately. And I've added additional campaigns that are now being coupled with the AI and being able to have the AI conversations and just being able to, instead of me typing out a text message back to the customer, having the suggestive text message just sitting there. I got 3 options to click on and choose and go from. It just, it expedites the amount of time that I have. And then also the phone calls, right? The phone calls are always, they're what got me here, and they are what's going to get me to where I want to go. Um, I'm excited to have this assistant because I'm no longer going to let myself answer calls as they come back.
Mhm.
If I miss somebody, I'm going to move on and continue making calls. And when this person is set up and ready to go, they're going to start taking any responses. Okay, Kyle's on the other line. Let's set up a conversation or a time for you to connect with them.
Nice.
That's what I'm excited to get to. And again, the phone calls are how it got here, but the CRM, Zapier, the podcast, using opportunities, or which is now Success Tracker. I mean, all of that is thanks to you guys and the team for putting those ideas out there. And what I love about MMA is there's so many different tools and resources available, and that's another big plug is just getting into MMA and learning more.
100.
The coaching is invaluable, and I absolutely love it. So, um, but getting in and knowing that there's a million different tools and resources available. You talked about the podcast for a little while, and I just love podcasting. I have a little fun podcast that I do with some buddies, and we just have like 8 or 10 listeners, and it's really just the guys that do it, and we just have fun going on rants and silly stuff like that. But actually, we did get a request for an author that would like to join the show, which is kind of cool.
Nice.
Writing about some college football history, so that's pretty fun. But anyways, you started talking about that, and I was like, that'd be really cool to turn this into something business, right? So now I've got a couple of microphones, I've got some new setup, I've got a light. I'm just starting to add some different pieces that are going to make it more fun. But being able to interview top producing agents, I mean, that's a sales pitch in and of itself. I
That's
get
right.
a coffee with an agent, and then after that, I say, okay, great. Now we've had the coffee. Let's talk about getting you on the show for the podcast. Hey,
Yep.
now we had you on the podcast. Let's get you set up with MoveTube. Now
Yep.
that MoveTube's done, let's get you set up with something else. Like there's always another offer, and it's a slow way to bring that agent in, giving them as much value as possible. So there's no reason that they have to say, no, I don't want to work with you.
Yep.
Give them as much as you can, because ultimately, if we're giving all the other stuff, hopefully they're going to be sending us business, and we can make it a smooth transition for them, and give them a good process from start to finish. So
Yeah. That is so true. And I love all the value offers that you put out there because all of them are accretive. And the fact that like if you have a podcast episode that you do with a top producer, you just created all your own social media content, you created their social media content, you get to go direct to consumer to their followers and their listeners and their email list. And there's business to be done just in the relationship building portion of it. Move to.
And then I use ChatGPT to create the blog. I
Yeah.
use ChatGPT to write the posts about the social media, right? I use the AI CRM within the social media area, and I can upload the clips. By the way, I use Riverside. Anybody wants to check out Riverside, I highly recommend it. Riverside,
Amazing.
it's just great for podcasting. But you can get the clips out of that. You can upload those into the AI CRM. You can upload the content from ChatGPT. I've made my own little GPT, which is a lot of fun to do. Writing blog posts, getting emails that I send to the agents afterwards, saying, "Hey, here's a suggested email you send out to your clients, so that they can know that you were just recently featured on a podcast, and it's going to drive people to my podcast. Hopefully, getting people to stick around, maybe listen to another." But it's also going to give them something. It's value for that agent, because now more people get to know who that agent is. Oftentimes they go through that process. Maybe they're bringing their kid along. That might be the only thing that the customer knows about the agent, is that they brought their kid along. They don't know how old the kid is, or they're focused on the house. They weren't worried about the agent and their family. But this is a high touch business.
Yep.
Agents are constantly making contacts. Lenders are constantly making contacts. We're doing it the right way. So getting to know your agent is really important, in my opinion. So.
Absolutely. Those are all ways to do it. Well, Kyle, again, thank you for being so generous with your time. If people want to learn more about you or the podcast or reach out, how do people find out about you?
Oh, yeah. So the best part is Tall Money Man is my hashtag. So you said Guldenpfennig, and that's great. You did really well saying that. But really, my last name is just Tall Money Man.
Thanks.
Hashtag Tall Money Man. Search that anywhere you can. I'm on all socials with it. Well, all socials. There's too many new ones now for me to count. But TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, Shorts, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can go to tallmoneyman.com and you can check me out there. And yeah, it's been a pleasure being on the show, Chris. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing all your knowledge to all of our listeners. Make sure you subscribe for the next episode. And the Loan Officer AI CRM is loanofficercrm.ai if you're looking for more information on that. So, Kyle, thanks again for being on the show.
Thanks, Chris.